Hello everybody, it's Andy from Glass Half Dead here, and oh boy, this is a big one. I think that not the last FAQ balance update, but the one before that, I even said, this is the biggest update we've ever had. I think this is going to change that. So, there's a lot here. This is a really big update. I have done my absolute best to disseminate the information, and let's just power through it. I'm going to just read everything out as quickly as I can, and then maybe touch on a few things as we go through. I'm not going to comment on every single change, but I will read it out for you. First things first, before we dive into it, you know that this next slide is for my subscribers only. That's right, it's a subscriber only exclusive. It is a double hello slide. Wow. So wholesome. Everybody loves a double pleasantry to know you're loved in this world, because let's be honest, there's no other way to know. Hey, if you really like what I'm doing here, you love that Kill Team, you want to support the community, check out my Patreon. Any support you can give me over there is great. I also have a Discord channel, and I have another channel called Full Scale Wargaming, which is about to kick off into a huge, highly well edited channel, as opposed to the slightly more casual version of Glass Half Dead. Let's dive into it. Okay, balance patch. So there's been a few interesting things coming. I'll talk about those at the end. One of the main things here is if you are playing the new Critical Ops pack, which is kind of the official competitive way to play, instead of being able to score 12, you are now able to score 16 from the primary. Why? So this is one of the few things I actually want to comment on. This was a big deal. So a lot of the top players, if you follow the tournaments, a lot of people are scoring 20, and you're going to, and it's like, who wins? Well, you have to go to tie breaks, and it's less interesting, to be honest with you. Now, that shouldn't be the case. We will probably be looking at people scoring a little bit higher, a little bit lower maybe, but it means it's also going to be decided by the primary, not so much the secondary. I think this is a really good change. It might also change which teams. For example, forward deploys are going to be better than ever. Yeah, this is a good change, because at the top tables, we will get actual differences in the VP score instead of a bunch of ties. Okay, commandos. Now, if you opt to take either the squig or the grot, you can take both together. Great change. Probably should have always been this way, I suspect. I don't think commandos would have hurt for this. Do you want to take these over a boy? That depends on the matchup, the mission, etc. But good change. And commandos do seem to need it at the moment. So legionary. DR means damage reduction. Is now to a minimum of 3. This is for Nurgle. It used to be a minimum of 2. This is good, I think. And in fact, as we go through, we're going to see a bunch of this. They didn't do a core rule that says no damage reduction can ever go below 3. It's just they've added that stipulation to anywhere it might have occurred. So yeah, damage reduction in general seems to now be limited to you can never go below 3 damage on a hit. But this is good. Legionary, Nurgle was too obvious a pick. If I'm honest, I think Nurgle's still the pick. I don't think this changes anything, but it's good. Good to kind of get those core rules in locked down. Corsairs, your Shredder gains rending. Shredder's already a great pick, so yep, awesome, nice. Phobos, the Vanguard strat ploy, which is something that we would often play, let's be honest, because it allows you to move up and down things for 1 circle less. For example, therefore you can go over barricades for free, and it also gives you +1 to your movement. Now you get a mission or pickup action for free. Obviously I like this because 6 months ago I said this was exactly what Phobos needed, so it's nice that it gets added now. I think this is great. It's going to make them so fast on Into the Dark. And obviously it's going to just really help their action economy outside of Into the Dark and on Into the Dark as well. So this is good. Great little touch for Phobos there. They didn't go crazy and do anything weird with them. I think that's a solid, deft touch there. Gelapox, lead the infections 1 use. Cool. I don't even know what Gelapox do. Star Striders, Archaeotech Beam is now +1 to the ballistic skill. it used to be that everything, this is the change they made in the last balance patch. Basically, they've reneged on that, and so now, instead of all of the support assets getting +1 ballistic skill, it's only the Archaeotech beam that gets +1 ballistic skill. And they have a ploy that allows them their regular dudes to get half damage. And it used to be half damage all the time for every attack made against them in a turn. Now it's only one time during a turn. That's probably a fair change, I suppose. Probably not going to have a huge effect. Breaches. The Blitz ploy is a whole load of things happening. Basically now, if you do a thing, you don't get a reroll alongside it. The Grenadier only has one of each grenade, it doesn't, whereas it used to have two. And again, damage reduction is reduced to 3. Again, a good thing. I like having the damage reduction, having a minimum. Then we get to Intercession. I'm glad to see an Intercession nerf. Let's see what it is. So durable, the durable damage reduction, again, reduced to 3. Which I think is just part of bringing it in line with the rest of damage reduction. But it's now only on 1 dice per attack. It used to be that every crit was reduced by 1 damage. Super good. Now it's reduced each time you're attacked by, you can essentially remove one crit per attack instead of per dice. I think durable is probably still your go-to, because in reality you're still going to be critted more than once whilst you're alive, and therefore it's probably still better than +1 wound. Cool, nice. And we get to the 2 big reworks. I'll start with the Kassakin, because they're a little bit quicker. So they all get +1 wound. I called for that. I like it. Good stuff. I like it. +2 elite points every turn. This is nice. So it used to be the case of if your leader was alive, you would get +2 elite points. Now you just get that natively, but you still get what your leader will give you. So you're really +4 elite points per turn, but if you lose your leader, you're only +2. And they also have a Combat Blade, which is 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, 3/4 for 1 EP. This turns them from their gun butt, which was 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, 2/3. This is really good. I'm glad they've added this. It's just going to make them be a little bit punchier. Are we going to take it? Well, Kassakin don't have the best equipment in the first place, so yeah, probably. It still doesn't make them very good in melee, though. Cool, let's talk about the Hyrotech. Now, Hyrotech. I know a lot about the Hyrotech, weirdly, so maybe I'll dig in a smidge here, or maybe I'll wait. Let's see. Reanimation protocols. They now get D3 plus 3 wounds. It used to be just D3. And you can place it within 3 inches of where they returned instead of exactly on the spot where they returned. Very cool. Accelerator. So this is your plasma sight accelerator. You can now give your +1 APL for free, and it's anyone within 6 inches instead of 3 inches. It's still limited to only being your Immortals, your Deathmark, Despotech, etc. Still can't be a Cryptech or a Prentech. Reanimator, Plasma Sight Reanimator. Just like any other medic, if you performed the action, you would get -1 APL. This guy doesn't take -1 APL. I think that's fair. Cool, I like it. We then get the Cryptech, the Despotech, and the Apprentech. All get +2 wounds. Now, the Cryptech already had +2 wounds, so he's 13. The others are now 12s. Great, good. Ballistic skill, weapon skill +1. Needed, but that means our Despotech is hitting on 2s. Now, that's not too shabby. That's the kind of rolling even I might be able to win with. So, very good. Good changes. Cryptech and Despotech, the command/demand is 0 AP. Yep, should have always been that, so it's good to see. I like it. Cryptech action. Now this is huge. This is huge. So your Cryptech action, when performed by the Cryptech, not by the Apprentech, just to clarify, is in play until the start of the operative's next activation. Man, that is really good. Yeah, that's a really strong one. So the 2 big things, in my mind, all of these are quality of life changes, except the reanimation protocols is now D3 plus 3, and it's still happening before living metal, so really it's D3 plus 5. That means all of your regular dudes are 100% guaranteed to come back not injured. They will be above half health. And in fact, your minimum health you can come back with is 6. So the only model that might return and not and still be injured is your Cryptek. That's good. That is good. Cool, I like it. And then the Cryptek action remaining until the start of his next activation. Really strong. Those two things are really good. Okay, with that said, let's continue moving on because we have so much to talk about here. I may well go back and think about these things again. You know, I have a new studio. I might even see if I can push out a battle report using Hyrotech. See how they feel. Okay, let's talk about all of the core changes. We've just got the one page for the core changes here. Hatchway fight, you treat as within engagement range. So this has been something. This is going to be, if I stop on every rule, it's going to be so long. But there's often a rule. We have a lot of wordings that say treat like something, and we're never quite sure if treat like something means it is the same as something. Hatchway fight. This is just kind of, so far every time something has had that wording, it does just mean it is the same as this thing. And now, if you're doing a hatchway fight, this quite nicely says, if you're within that 2 inches and a hatchway fight's occurred, every rule, normally it's a tack op or can I use a follow-up ability, you can treat them like they are within engagement range. Good, clears up the ruling, excellent. Regardless or never. So, this is a nice one. So, this is, there's often a rule that is, regardless of any other rules, this thing happens. But then you also get the opposite, which is this operative can never be affected by that thing, by that rule. And they're just clarifying here, regardless of any other rule, beats a model never being able to be affected by that rule. There you go. Regardless beats never. Keywords. So this is an interesting one. If you gain a keyword, for example, balanced, it only happens once. You cannot balance twice. Cool. That makes total sense for me. Much like AP doesn't stack or whatever. But then other things, for example, ignoring wounds can stack. I guess I'd have to go back and reread it. But for example, if you gain... in fact, I don't think that ever comes up in the game. So I'm not going to say that to not confuse people. Cool. So ignoring wounds. So I think there's only one way to do this, but there might be like, well, no clue about narrative, right? But certainly with the Cryptek, you have the ability to get a 5-up Feel No Pain through your Cryptek action, and you can give them a piece of equipment that when hit by a mortal wound, you get a 4-up Feel No Pain. And so ignoring wounds, do you get to make both of those ignore damage rolls? Yes, you do. So that's cool. So if you take a mortal wound as a Cryptek and you have that equipment on, and you have your Feel No Pain up, you can make 2 saving throws. The first one's going to be a 5-up, the next one's going to be a 4-up. Really cool. Very strong. So that's actually a direct buff to Hyrotech, to be clear. A free action is still free. So this actually comes up multiple times in this FAQ. So I think this is a good core rule that you can take and say, oh, this means this. So if something is free, it is essentially multiplying by 0 if you go +1. So, yep. If something's free and you give them a debuff, that means that whatever action they perform is +1, it is still free. Now, just to clarify, not many actions get to be counted as free. Many of them are counted as -1 to perform the action. Different thing. But if it's counted as free, it is always free, which is good. Abilities after death, you can still use them. This one doesn't sit well with me, if I'm honest, because it seems like it goes quite clearly against the ruling, the words that they use to define the rule. But on the flip side, I think this is exactly how it should work if you ignore getting into the nitty-gritty details of how things are worded. Why would the medic lose his ability to perform the medic action if he's dead? He's still a medic. Things like that. Cool. Nice. Guard can shoot anyone. I'm actually really glad for this FAQ, got to be honest, because I wasn't entirely sure. But yeah, if you're on Into the Dark and you perform the guard action and you get to interrupt the enemy, it's just an Overwatch shot. You don't have to shoot the guy you're interrupting, which I'm surprised by that. I'm very surprised. I'm glad they clarified it. I thought you had to shoot the model that you were interrupting. Like, clearly I'd have to go back and read guard, and if anybody ever challenged me on it and I went back and read it, they'd probably be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm right, you're right, I misremembered the wording. I thought it specifically said, no, you have to shoot that guy. But no, you're interrupting that guy, but interrupting doesn't mean shooting that guy, so that's very good to know. Cool. We then get to the faction changes, going to bang through these faster than I won't say that joke. Star Striders. The Canid can perform pickup actions during the retrieve action. This is a thing, it was argued about a lot. It's good that they've clarified it. Nice. Support assets gain close quarters rules. That's an interesting one. I didn't really see anybody asking that. I don't know why it wouldn't, but they've clarified it. Cool. The Krukin Band, of course, the Hound, much like the Canid, it's exactly the same ability. It can also perform a pickup action when performing Gather. Gather is the same as Retrieve. Thank God 40k is going back to USRs, so we don't have to have different names for different things, right? Galapox, for some reason, was only put up in Spanish or Portuguese or something. So I put no Espanol, but then my Discord came to my rescue. And apparently, Technocurse doesn't affect support assets. Good to know. A fair one to ask. Although, an odd ruling. Because the ruling from above there for the Star Striders, support assets gain close quarters rules, I believe the reason you ask that is because the support asset isn't in the kill zone, so why would it get access to the close quarters rules, right? Makes sense, cool, fair question to ask. You're saying, no, that doesn't really matter, it's still a thing that occurs in the kill zone. But then you're saying Technicus doesn't affect it. Interesting, a little bit conflicting maybe, cool. Hyrotech, Plasma Sight can fall back for -1 APL. I was shocked to learn they couldn't do that, to be honest. I was like, I thought they could, in fact. But clearly they've clarified it, so that's great. Reanimation protocols keeps all tokens, modifiers, etc. This is great to know as a Hyrotech player myself. Although, not for much longer, because I think they're probably too strong now. This is good to know. Often I would lose a model, and I know that the order stays the same. It states that, but if it's been buffed for +1 or -1 APL, does that stay? If it's got any, that's literally the only buff I can think of. But that's good to know. Excellent. What have I done here? Breaches, Geist Skull, blow up enemies, can't get cover. I don't really know breaches, to be honest with you. But basically, the Geist Skull can blow up. It's one of these faux blasts, so it's essentially a blast attack, but it's written specifically for the Geist Skull. It doesn't just get blast, I assume. They're just FAQing here. Nope, it's like blast. They don't get cover. Cool. We get to Legionary. Unending Bloodshed doesn't combine with Wrathful Onslaught. No extra crit. Unending Bloodshed, let me think if I can remember this. This is essentially your fight on death. Instead, before removing them from the kill zone, the zone, you can make one attack against an enemy, and if it hits according to your ballistic skill, then you make that successful strike. They can't do anything against it. Cool. Wrathful Onslaught allows you to turn a normal hit to a crit, and they're just saying no, it doesn't work on this. Fine. Weird, but fair enough. Novitiates. Guilt Reveals Itself is an ability from the Exaction Squad. Can't really remember what it does right now. Oh, sorry. Guilt Reveals Itself is you're allowed to treat the enemy as having no cover or not being within cover. Let's use our words correctly here. Things can get a little bit technical. And that beats Blinding Aura. There you go. Good to know. Good to know. A valid one. And then Defenders of the Faith can guard instead of shoot, as it's treated as a shoot action. So again, as I was mentioning earlier, Some rules get treated as another action. Guard is one of those. When you perform the guard action, it is treated as a shoot action. This kind of leans into the idea that anything that is treated as something is exactly the same as something. So, Defenders of the Faith allows you to perform a shoot action. Well, apparently it also allows you to perform the guard action, which is really interesting, and I don't have time to consider exactly what that's going to do for the game, but it sounds really cool, because you perform a guard action, and then you're guarding right until you get to action, and then you can move, and you could still guard again, I think, because your first shot comes out of your activation, so you can just shoot again. So you could guard with Defenders of the Faith, wait till the last second, so you're yeah, it's cool. I think that would be very useful in certain situations, especially right. Vet Guard, close quarters effects, tactical assets, exactly the same as the Star Striders there. Void Dancer Troop, Mutoid Vermin cannot add to your performance tally. Good to know, because Mutoid Vermin can't affect your TAC ops, your score, really, but the performance tally isn't your score. Isn't a TAC op, it's just a thing. So good for them to add it there. Is it a direct nerf to Void Dancers? Yes. Do we care? Probably not, no. Warp Common schemes have changed. Normally would let you to randomly select one of your TAC ops from your archetypes. Now you get to actively pick it, so you get to decide. Nice. Now we get to the two squads that we haven't had any FAQs before. We get the Exaction squad. The Castigator still takes minus to defense despite engendered focus. Now you might be asking, what is engendered focus? I don't have... Engendered focus allows you to ignore any modifiers to the operative or the operative's weapons. So you'll never take a negative to hit, that sort of thing. Normally you'd think that would be from injured. So you'll never be at -1 to hit, essentially. However, they're just saying here that if you have, for some reason, taken a debuff to your defense stat, you do still take that. And then, engendered focus, because it is never affected by modifiers in any way, apart from the defense stat, it still beats a damage reduction ability. So if you're hitting a Nurgle Legionary, who would normally be at -1 to your damage, so instead of being, you ignore it. And that's really cool. Good. Nice. Hand of the Archon. So clearly they were having a lot of issues here with the Disciple of Yelindra, and they fixed a bunch of those. So Torment Grenade, you can't use it while within engagement range. Makes sense. And you're killing the Disciple does not remove that effect. There was also another thing here, but as far as it has no real relevance to anything. I think it's just solving a potential wording issue, just in case. The Elixircant can't swap drugs while within engagement range. Nice. If you get a kill with your Torment Grenade, the poison will still grant you pain tokens. I think that's a really good one to clarify. Nice. From Darkness Death, you can pick the enemy... you have to pick the enemy operative that you're going to do this on before swapping your order token. I don't know why that was needed to be clarified, but it is. So there we go. The Stinger Pistol determines mortal wounds after rerolls. I don't know. Oh, there was an... I think I read somewhere that because of the way it was worded, because it wasn't worded correctly, instead of... Yes. Instead of retaining more... normally, when we're rolling, it says when you retain a critical hit, the critical effect happens. But this isn't worded as when you retain a critical hit. It's worded as when you roll a critical hit, something like that. And so, what could happen is you roll a bunch of 6s, right? And then you do your damage, you do your mortal wounds. But you've rolled them. You can then apply rerolls, and if you roll a 6 into another 6, because it's not on retained, it's upon rolled, you could get another mortal wound. And that's just them clarifying, no, that's not how that works. Obviously, people want to know how vice versa the phrase works, and they said it means you can perform it in either order of operating. Like, yeah, okay, thanks for explaining English. Sorry, to clarify, I wasn't making fun of them for FAQing it. I was making fun of people for wanting to know what vice versa means. Vice versa. And finally, Devious Scheme, much like I said before, free means free. Devious Scheme does not change a free ploy to being a ploy that costs 1. So that's good to know. Obviously, that's going to come up a lot with Phobos these days, because you are going to run into those bad boys. Let me tell you that right now. You cannot make Terror cost 1 CP when it costs 0 CP. And that's it, everybody. And that means you know what's happened. What are we at? 25 minutes. I did my best, guys. I'm so sorry. We're going to go ahead and say, hey, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big triple hello. The wholesomeness knows no bounds in the world of Glass Half Dead. Yes, it's a very confusing name. What can I say? Anyway, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. There's been so much here. Hyrotech, busted. Phobos, always been good. Nobody knew. How about that? Kassakin, nice light touch. I approve. Good stuff. I think everything else was... I think everything here was good. Apart from Hyrotech. I think Hyrotech... We'll see, right? I mean, they were the worst. They might now have been given enough buffs that people are going to look at them a little bit closer and take them to the best. Or maybe they just sit around nicely in the middle. You never know. Also, I have to point out, I should have said this at the beginning. I do apologise. They did a MetaWatch video where we get to see our Lord and Saviour, creator of the game, Elliot. He came across very well, I thought. He mumbled often, but that's fine. I think he did a really good job of explaining why why they made each change, and maybe I'm just a fanboy, but I thought it was like, yeah, they're acknowledging that there are negatives in the game and it's not in a perfect state, and that, you know, you can't always rely on numbers, and yeah, I just thought that it came across well, and he did a good job, and yeah, so I would recommend watching it, to be clear, as I thought they did a good job. Obviously, they didn't do anything more necessarily outside of the first 2 minutes where they're explaining this is how we look at the game. Outside of that, they really just did what I did here and read off the data sheets or the balance patch. But yeah, so go check that out. I thought it was good. And that's about it. Yeah, hey, if you like what I'm doing here, check out my Patreon. If you want that Hyrotech game, drop a comment. Let me know who you want that game to be against. I also have a Vantage Point podcast where I talk about Kill Team sometime, or always, in fact, on the Vantage Point podcast. And I have a Discord, I have other things too, but most importantly for me right now, apart from Patreon obviously, is go and check out Full Scale Wargaming. It's about to kick off. In fact, if I do that Hyrotech Circle game and do it well, it's going to be on there, not Glass Half Dead. Or both, purely for cross-promotional purposes, to begin with in the life of the new channel. Who knows? Anyway, also, random one. I have an Element Games affiliate link. If you are going to go and buy yourself some Warhammer, and it's going to be through Element Games, consider clicking on my link below. I did it because it's free for me to do, and I just get like a kickback, so that'd be cool. But there's no pressure. It's just something I did. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. This is really exciting, and hey, it's April Fool's tomorrow. So I'm not going to do a video because I don't want to mess with you guys like that. Okay. All right. Have a good one, guys. Bye.